Have you ever wondered what it feels like when the person you trust most in the world walks away and leaves you alone in the dark? The forest was quiet that evening. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your heart beat faster, even when you can't see what's coming. John sat on a fallen log, his hands trembling as they gripped his walking stick. His eyes, clouded with blindness for the past 3 years, stared into nothing. He could smell the pine trees around him, feel the cold air against his weathered face, and hear the distant sound of footsteps fading away. His wife's footsteps. "Sarah?" he called out, his voice shaking. "Sarah, where are you going?" But there was no answer, just the echo of his own voice bouncing between the trees, and then silence. What would you do if you realized the person who promised to love you forever had just abandoned you in the middle of nowhere? 3 years ago, John's world had gone dark. A terrible accident at the construction site, where he worked, had stolen his sight forever. At first, Sarah had been supportive. She'd held his hand, guided him through the house, helped him learn to live in darkness. But as months turned into years, something changed. He'd heard her crying at night when she thought he was asleep. He'd felt her pull away when he reached for her hand. He'd sensed the burden he'd become, though she never said the words out loud. Until today. "I'm taking you somewhere peaceful," she'd said that morning, her voice flat and distant. "Somewhere you can rest." He'd trusted her, even when they drove for hours. Even when they walked deep into the forest, farther than they'd ever gone before. Even when her hand slipped from his, and he heard her walking away. But what John didn't know was that someone else was watching. The temperature dropped as evening turned to night. John pulled his olive green jacket tighter around his body. His military dog tags clinked softly against his chest, a reminder of who he used to be. A soldier, a builder, a man who could take care of himself, but not anymore. He stood up carefully, using his walking stick to feel the ground around him. Maybe he could find his way back. Maybe if he just started walking. That's when he heard it. A low growl, deep and rumbling, coming from somewhere in front of him. John's blood ran cold. His grip tightened on the walking stick. "Who's there?" The growl came again, closer this time. And then he heard breathing. Heavy animal breathing. The sound of paws moving across the forest floor. Leaves crunching under heavy weight. In that moment, blind and alone in the dark forest, John realized he wasn't just abandoned. He was being hunted. "Please," John whispered, his voice barely audible. "Please, I don't want to die like this." The animal moved closer. John could feel its presence now, could smell something wild and untamed. His military training told him not to run. Running would only trigger the predator's instinct to chase. But his instinct to survive screamed at him to move, to do something, anything. He raised his walking stick like a weapon, knowing it was useless but needing to try. And then something impossible happened. Instead of attacking, the animal moved to his side. John felt warm fur brush against his leg. Not aggressive, not threatening, almost protective. Could a wild wolf really be trying to help a blind man lost in the forest? John slowly lowered his walking stick. His hand, shaking, reached down and touched thick, coarse fur. The animal, definitely a wolf he could tell now, didn't pull away. Instead, it pressed closer as if offering warmth. "What are you doing?" John whispered, his fingers running through the wolf's fur. "Why aren't you attacking me?" The wolf made a soft sound, almost like a whimper. Then it moved forward slightly. Its body language clear even to a blind man. "Follow me." John had no other choice, no other hope. So he placed his hand on the wolf's back, and together they began to walk through the dark forest. What John didn't know was that this wolf had been watching him and Sarah the entire time. The wolf had seen everything. For hours, they walked together. The wolf guided him around fallen trees, away from steep drops, through the safest paths in the forest. Whenever John stumbled, the wolf would stop and wait patiently. When John needed to rest, the wolf would sit beside him, sharing its warmth in the freezing night. John couldn't understand it. In all his years, all his training, all his experiences, he'd never heard of anything like this. Wolves were supposed to be dangerous. They were supposed to hunt, to kill. But this wolf was saving his life. Why would a wild animal show more compassion than his own wife? As dawn began to break, though John couldn't see it, the wolf's pace changed. It became more urgent, pulling him forward faster. And then John heard something that made his heart leap. Voices. "Over here! I see something! Call it in! There's someone out there!" The wolf had led him to a ranger station at the edge of the forest. As the rangers rushed forward, John felt the wolf step away from his side. He reached out, trying to find it one more time, wanting to thank this impossible creature that had saved him. "Wait," he called out. "Please wait." But the wolf was gone, disappeared back into the forest like a ghost. Had it ever really been there at all? The rangers wrapped John in warm blankets and gave him hot coffee. They called the police. They called for medical help. And they asked him what happened. John told them everything. About Sarah, about being left in the forest, about the wolf that guided him to safety. Most of them looked at each other with doubt in their eyes. But one older ranger, a man with silver hair and kind eyes, nodded slowly. "I believe you," he said quietly. "These forests are old. Sometimes they take care of their own in ways we can't explain." Later, they found Sarah at a hotel 2 towns over. She confessed everything through tears. The desperation, the burden, the terrible choice she'd made. She was arrested, charged, and eventually convicted. But John didn't think about her much anymore. Instead, on cold nights, he would sit by his window in the small cabin he now called home, and he would listen to the distant sound of wolves howling in the forest. And he would remember the impossible kindness of a creature that truly saw him when he couldn't even see himself. Because sometimes the ones who save us aren't the ones we expect. Sometimes they're the ones who see our worth when the whole world has walked away.